Well, good morning. Thank you very much. I'm Jeff Towers with TVPX. I want to introduce the panelists here. To my immediate right, Matt Rosanvallon from Freestream, Pascal Bachmann from Jetcraft, and Mark Butler from Aviation. Maybe each of you could give a brief intro.
Yeah, so Matt Rosanvallon with Freestream. We're based personally in the United States, around Teterboro, but the headquarters are in the UK. We do about 60, 75 transactions a year, and no, it's been good, and we look forward to this year.
Yeah, so Pascal Bachmann, nice to be here and see you. Jetcraft, I'm based wherever my suitcase takes me, which today happens to be here. I look after the EMA team, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we've had a good 24 year, nothing exceptional, but a good year, and 25 is starting really, really good.
And Mark Butler from Aviation. I mean, you guys know who we are, based in Dubai, and although I live in the UK, we also operate BBJ and a global.
Well, thank you very much. We're talking about aircraft values today, as you know, and probably the first thing to start with, just general background, is activity levels. What did we see in 2024 as compared to activity levels in the prior couple of years? Matt, you want to?
Sure, we can. I mean, Pascal has a good graph that I think we'll take a look at and give us a good visualization of the markets. But even when we were talking with EBAA, there was the market kind of confidence of 2025, and fairly to very optimistic seemed to range about 80%. And even in our markets, it remains kind of the sentiment and saying it's a robust kind of market confidence is very fair. We'll see that, even airplanes for sale fleet-wise, whether it's light, medium, or large, is up to close 7%, which has been year over year going up. So we're seeing an increased amount of inventory, but still relatively lower than our kind of 9-10%, which we consider a baseline. So it's still, the inventory is good and healthy, but the amount of transactions that are happening are also very high. We've seen Jeffries and our friends of IATA come up with some numbers that kind of signify that this robust market confidence and transactions are going to be at high levels. So I don't want to take
Yeah, and Pascal, what do you attribute to the healthiness, I guess you would say, of the activity levels over the last year?
Well, as I said, we had a good year last year. I'm especially covering Europe, Middle East, and Africa. Europe is a bit of a problem child, maybe, because of all the issues we already discussed this morning. I hope we can turn a corner on that. But because at Jetcraft we're really global, what happens is that we probably see an exodus of aircraft from Europe that we sell into other markets, specifically and mainly North America, of course, which is the biggest market. I think last year, North America, in terms of pre-owned aircraft, accounted for 64% of all the transactions. Numbers are a bit different for us at Jetcraft. We have more like 55%. And Europe initially does 1/3 of Jetcraft's result.
Mark, let's talk a little bit about inventory levels. A few years ago, it was hard to find certain types of aircraft that were particularly desirable. If somebody's shopping for one of those more in-demand aircraft today, how many aircraft are they going to have to choose from? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it still dependent upon the class of the aircraft?
I mean, there are certain models that are always difficult to get hold of, but I think there's probably a little bit more choice now than there was beginning of last year in terms of what's on the market available. But the deals will depend on where they sit on the values. Obviously, my gut feeling at the moment is that sellers are still sort of COVID era, yes, my aircraft's worth a lot of money, Whereas, we spoke about this morning, but buyers are a lot more educated, so they're looking, I think, more at the maintenance due over the next 2 years, and generally what the market's doing. So, I mean, that there's not. I don't think we're back to pre-COVID levels of inventory sat on the market, but I think it's building.
Pascal, of aircraft that are available on the market now, what seems to be popular? What's hot right now?
I would say everything is hot right now. Really, since the end of last year, we had a really good month of January. When we see all the activity, we can only be optimistic, and it's across the board. It's from small aircraft to large aircraft. Everything is in demand, and coming back to inventory, I think we'll go to the slide a bit later, but we are not back to inventory levels that we had in 2019. We are not back to these inventory levels, and the days on market are a lot shorter. So aircraft sell relatively quickly, and inventory is still down. So there's a reason for prices to hold.
And I think that's been a big kind of part, is that every market is following this. Prices have kind of seen the stabilization over the last few months, and so it's the fact that all the markets are remaining fairly robust and transactions are happening sort of in all of them keeps that confidence kind of up. It's good.
Matt, any impact that you see from aircraft that are retiring and new aircraft coming on? What do you think the impact is going to be, or already is, for those changes in the marketplace?
It's interesting to see. Recently we have basically the 7X is being retired, the 550, the 650, the Falcon 900 is also coming up to that, so we get to see for kind of the first time the beginning of the serial numbers and the end, and how they're retaining values, and some of these early models of the 550s, 7Xs, etc., are retaining very good value, and maintenance has been done, etc., and it's fun to see. It's nice and you can get a lot of aircraft for your money at this point. And even going back to, I was just talking to my father about this not too long ago, and it's just a side story that was kind of fun, of the 900, which started in 1984, so 40 years and it's running, and even back then they were they chartered the Concorde airplane to fly 100 kind of ultra VVIPs to the centers to see these 900s, and it's a nice 360.
Let's think a little bit about the major geographic markets, what's going on with, I know there was discussion earlier about Europe, and anything, Pascal, that you'd like to pick up on from that conversation or add to?
Well, as I said, Europe, for now, a bit of a problem child. If we go to the more positive Middle East, what we see at Jetcraft is an increase in young buyers. And what we call young buyers is below 45, which for me is understandable. And we have actually more than 1/3 of all our Middle Eastern buyers below that age. So there's a sort of a new generation, if you want. And also, to keep on the positive, and on the subject of this morning I had to pass the blockade, which was very well organized, a bit of action before getting here in the morning, wakes you up nicely, very well done. 5 or 10 years back, people would say in Europe that the new generation, which was coming to power and would take over the big companies or the big families, would not be using private jets because of this. And in fact, it's not happening. We see them not only use it, but use it more and actually embracing it. And I think that's a very positive message for the future.
Mark, generally speaking, Asia Pacific, what kind of activity are you seeing there, trend-wise?
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously, I say it every year, but India is an exciting market for us. Middle East, obviously, where we're based. Yes, I would agree the clientele is getting younger. They're still highly established individuals, certainly the ones that have worked for their money or gone into family businesses. But I think I think over the next couple of years, the sort of Saudi, Middle East, and India region is going to be really, really exciting. Personally, I mean, for Europe, we don't do that much. We don't see too many inquiries coming in. There's the odd deal here and there, but nothing particularly exciting. So.
Matt,
just
North America.
Sorry to interrupt. Everybody's speaking a lot about Saudi and India. We should not forget that India is a bit over 200 aircraft all in, if I'm not mistaken. So even if we were to replace 10% of the fleet every year, it's only not many aircraft in the big scheme of things. But this being said, it's a really interesting place. I was showing a Global 6000 in Basel to an Indian customer last week. They are an operator. They already own a Global that they charter, and this aircraft does 1,200 hours every year. So you have the buying population on one side, but you also have the chartering population, which is our future, pond where we're going to fish the new customers, I hope.
I think that the big thing with India in particular is that a lot of the buyers want finance on their aircraft, and at the moment the finance companies just won't touch India. That will change eventually, but there is a market to be captured if we can offer finance to that region.
There's also one interesting thing, and then I stop, about India. Because we're in London, they say the English have invented administration, and the Indians have perfected it. And that's very true.
In India, there are some exchange issues and things like, not exchange issues, but getting money in and out, getting a closing done. Can one of you talk a little bit about the challenges there?
Well, it's difficult, especially in a market like now. Since I said we had a good month of January, an example is for that Global that I showed, we had 3 competing offers. So 3 people wanted this airplane. So it comes down to who can be the fastest, not only to sign the papers, but you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. So where's the money? And if you are in a country that takes 2 weeks or 3 weeks to allow you to get your money out of the country, it's going to be difficult for you. So when we advise these customers, we advise them early on in the process to have money outside that they can use for deposit and acquisitions. It's very important. Otherwise, what is going to happen is that these aircraft are going to the US or to Europe or to Asia Pacific, and they are going to miss out.
That's great. Why don't we talk a little bit before we get to North America and about Saudi Arabia, the activity levels there, the potential for growth, and whether there are any challenges in that market.
Well, Saudi, it's a place everybody talks about. I heard Bombardier just before say that the market is not mature enough to justify opening an MRO. I think that's pretty much summarizing it. Also, we do mainly pre-owned. We do the odd new one, but mainly pre-owned. And on the pre-owned market, they tend to buy new, actually. They are used to buy new, and they are not really wired to buy pre-owned. Not everybody. It's starting. I think it's the beginning, and we need to see all this 2030 developments and all that. I don't want to sound negative, but so far, what has actually happened? I mean, I look forward, being Swiss, to go skiing on one of their ski slopes in the middle of the desert, and I'll believe it when I see it, sort of.
In those emerging markets in India and in Saudi Arabia, are there particular classes of aircraft that are popular, or is it a little broader to include, let's say, smaller aircraft as opposed to just long-range aircraft?
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think most of them are going to be the longer-range aircraft. I mean, we don't find many inquiries for smaller aircraft. 604 is probably the smallest.
Matt, why don't we talk a little bit about North America, generally what you're seeing in the U.S., Canada.
I mean, the Northeast, yeah, it's about 60% of the entire. It's a big market. It's remaining very. It seems like we're taking a lot of your airplanes and buying. No, I'm kidding, but it's. No, but it's the U.S. is remaining very strong, right? That's been whether it's cash, whether their methods of payments. It's very flexible. It's the Brazil and South America has been getting stronger and stronger, which is good. Overall, it's there's been a lot of transactions happening in the Northeast, and it helps kind of, whether they're imports or not. It's been strong, and it's going to remain this way, I feel. No.
In the U.S. Go ahead.
Sorry,
Mark.
I think also with Trump in and building the positivity of the market and the general economy, that a lot more people were going to start buying again in the US. I mean, let's be honest, obviously the US drives the rest of the world in terms of biz jets. And you need that cycle event to kick off. And I think that will next year we'll be sitting here and talking about values either steadying or increasing or not depreciating much. But I think that's going to have a positive effect on aviation in general.
And even at the end of Q4, to add to that, it's before November, right before the kind of election results, there was a little bit of a gap. People weren't sure what to do, and then all of a sudden we saw maybe this pent-up demand. People say that it's pent-up demand or not, but it has kind of kicked in this optimism for the industry and how maybe some regulations will help, some fuel pricing might go down. It's an overall kind of dynamic. There's good energy coming into the markets, and it's we gotta keep pushing it.
It is the baby drill effect.
Matt, in the U.S., obviously there's a range of classes of aircraft that are popular. You mentioned before South America. What are you seeing for activity down there? What kind of aircraft are they looking for?
To be honest, I actually can't speak for all of them, but we've seen a few, the super mid-size, and light in South America fly well. Even these PC-12s and everything, very robust market there. But it's to larger Falcons, to the Challenger models. It's a lot of demand. They're making aggressive offers, and they're coming through. So it's been nice to deal with.
Are there any challenges to, generally speaking, to
South America?
Yeah.
The export process always takes a little bit longer. So while we have kind of, as you do a lot of times a pre-purchase evaluation, PPI, stuff like that, as you sell the airplanes, a lot of this paperwork's also going on at the same time. And while PPIs have some delays, I think exports in general sometimes take a little longer. But no, otherwise it's been the export process have been smooth. It's a little bit more time, but they've
as long
been
as you
paying
plan for it.
Yeah, the values are there. The time is there. We budget for it. It's encouraging.
Yeah. Sorry for not being able to read all of the questions, but with my glasses. But one of the questions was, what's the pre-owned market looking like in Africa? Anybody have a sense for that?
Well, Africa is a great market. There's a real need for business aviation in Africa. If you ever try to travel with the airlines in Africa, you'll know what I mean. Sometimes you're downright risking your life. So, maybe a Mustang would be better. And also Africa is a really, really big country. Few people realize how big it actually is. You could fit the entire Europe, the entire continental US, the entirety of China in it, and still have a lot of room to spare around the edges. So they need big aircraft. They need these aircraft. And for us, the African market has been a good market. Countries like Nigeria, South Africa, of course, also Angola, I think it's one of the markets of the future, Africa, for sure.
I would agree. I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen on how to look after the aircraft and how to maintain it, and that sort of thing. I mean, we've had aircraft in Africa that have been, in there a year and have suffered serious issues with corrosion and lack of maintenance and everything like that. And you end up getting to the point where you as a broker sell an aircraft to a client, they don't look after it properly, then they blame you because they can't use the aircraft because it's broken. So there's a lot of education to happen there. I mean, obviously, there are 50 leads that come out of Africa, and actually only one of them is genuine. So it's hard work, I think. But yes, I think it's probably one of those places, particularly West Africa, that sort of region, that actually you can make a lot of money. I think it will grow quickly.
I just to react on that, I wouldn't. I don't like the stigma of it's an African aircraft, so it's crap. It's simply not true. We have crap aircraft in Europe as well. As a matter of fact, this year, really, this year we sold the Citation Sovereign, CL number 200 plus, to our friends at GSSI, who bought the aircraft to part it out because it was a crap aircraft and it wasn't economic to use anymore. So it shows it's not only Africa, it's everywhere, and you have good operations in Africa, and they are learning.
Yeah.
And you're right, the stigma is real, but it's a bit unfair because there are good operations, there are good airplanes that come out of there. There are people who take very good care of them, and it's
but it's the same with Indian aircraft. Oh, I don't want to buy that because it's been based in India. Well, that's rubbish, absolute rubbish. Most of the Indian aircraft are, in fact, there's some really good Indian MROs, but actually a lot of customers will go to Dubai or Singapore to the manufacturers and get their aircraft maintained there. I don't see what the issue is. Yeah.
But the climates have something to do, right? The sand, the oceans nearby. Yeah, that's true. That it's unavoidable.
Yeah, it depends on whether it's hanging or not.
Yeah,
but yeah.
No, for sure.
If we could have the slides posted, that would be helpful. And while we're talking about that, we were just talking about some used aircraft pre-owned aircraft issues. We talked a little bit about, in general, some of the challenges of, let's say, older pre-owned aircraft that are approaching their inspection, big inspections, and some of the valuation issues that you run into, some of the challenges that we run into. And can you talk a little bit about that, Matt?
Sorry, can you help me on this?
Yeah, well, I think they just put up the. I have to thank my team in the office here in London because they said you're doing a panel, so you'll have trouble sounding intelligent. We'll make some slides so at least you can look the part. Right? So Confucius said an image is worth 1,000 words, so we're going to save a lot of talking here. It's what I was saying before. Look at the share of the fleet for sale in January 19. It was 9.2%. We forget 2020 because that was COVID. In 21, we're down to 8. 22, we are down to 3.6. So we nearly divided it by 3 in 3 years. And now we are back up to 7.3. So we see it's rising, but it's rising a lot slower than it went down. And look at the number of days on the market. It used to be more than 1 year. We are down to 199. It's still a long time, but they sell faster today than they used to. And I think that's really, really something interesting. And in terms of the average asking price, you see the average asking price is rising. Probably having to do with the fact that we see more and more large cabin aircraft transactions. Larger aircraft, more expensive, hence the price is going up. Here again, if you look at the brown line, that's the share of the fleet. So you see the drop from Q3 2020 to the low we had in 22, and you see the slow rise. And we've compared it once with the average number of days on the market, and then with the average asking price. And you see an interesting fact is that the inventory goes down, but the number of days on the market is lagging. I mean, it's going down, but it's lagging behind, probably having to do with the fact that our industry takes time to close a deal. It's not something you do in 20 minutes.
So a couple of quick questions about just some of the challenges with valuation with certain types of aircraft. Mark, I think you touched on some of the challenges that you have with certain types of high-demand aircraft, sort of controlling sellers' urges to get a really, really, really COVID kind of deal. What are you seeing? How do you control that with sellers' expectations still being high in certain cases?
I mean, it's really just about preparing market reports and explaining to sellers where the market sits and what the last 3 aircraft of a similar type have sold for. But I mean, the issue is now, and what we're finding is that a lot of the aircraft we're having to take into account more now the larger inspections that are past a year. So when you look at if you have a major coming up in next year, people are looking, actually, I want 18 months worth of use out of an aircraft, or I want a significant reduction in the price. But the sellers are saying, well, actually, you've still got 18 months worth of use. Why should I discount? So that is playing a big part, I think.
Yeah, they're dinging us pretty heavily on the maintenance when it's, instead of 12 months, 9 months out for C-check 144s, et cetera, they're holding a lot of value into a year and a half ahead, sometimes even 2. They try to, maintenance has been taking a long time.
And not to cause too many ruckuses in the room, but obviously the rising cost of MROs is having a significant effect on the margins we as brokers can take, because obviously we have to then start accounting for maintenance packages, and also the residual values of the aircraft. New buyers are aware, having just been stung on their own aircraft, that when they change, they don't want to get stung again, so they're trying to get a reduction in value, because they know that when they visit an MRO, it's going to be extortionate.
Just looking at one of the questions that we have.
Sorry, Jet, by the way, and all the others.
Are there any particular classes of aircraft or types of aircraft that today are, from a value perspective, doing particularly well, maybe pushing the boundaries of the market upwards versus maybe other aircraft that are going the other direction? Any thoughts on types of aircraft?
I think if you look at aircraft that are a good value right now, I'd see something like a Global 5000, Classic or Vision, as slightly undervalued right now, maybe. And aircraft that are difficult to find, think about the 6500, for instance, or the 8X. You had 5 8X, I think, on the market in December, and now you're down to 1.5, maybe. That's it.
But that's one of the good points, is these 0 to 10-year-old kind of airplanes are holding very good value and are selling well. So these, especially with OEMs being, they're new airplanes, new aircrafts, or a year and a half, 2 years out, which is good for them, and they're producing more and they're increasing their projections, which is great. But it's also given these kind of newer pre-owned airplanes a good value, selling fast, hard to find, and these are good.
A couple of the other questions from the audience. Question about the new generation of buyers. Are their expectations, the models that they might be looking at to own and operate aircraft, might those be different than what we've seen traditionally over the last 10 years or so? Any thoughts?
Sharing economy, I think we're talking about fractional here. Fractional has been around for a while. I worked for a fractional a very long time ago. In fact, it was the last century when the thing was just being invented. I think every solution has its market, and very often what you'll see is that one owner might even supplement an aircraft with some shared solution. Be it they have an aircraft and they have hours on a friend's aircraft, or they have a fractional share to supplement it. And I'm not going to talk about blockchain because I'm still to understand what that might mean.
There was a question about the impact of tariffs, and I guess we don't need to worry about that today. Otherwise, we'd probably be talking about it a lot today, but that has all been put off for 30 days. Not all, but most. Any thought on if that were to happen 30 days from now, what we'd be looking at?
It's even just yesterday when all of this was going on, we had some people trying to do imports, etc. Talking to you guys, TVPX, trying to speed up the process. So, tariffs are there's ups and downs on the. It could create some commotions, right? If that's sometimes we see it as markets. If everything stays the same, I feel like we all think it's a robust, great market, but tariffs could throw kind of a wrench in these things and just complicating deal flows and tax aspects, and attorneys don't know where to go. There's a lot of people involved in these. Well, we'll see where it goes.
But there's always a workaround. I mean,
Yes, it's
we're always doing what is best to, for clients in order to close on a location where they're not paying tax or they're not incurring tariffs or whatever.
It's not that they're not paying tax; they're paying tax at a zero rate. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. Well, whichever way you want to brush it, but I mean that there are ways to circumvent these issues for now, and I don't think that this whole tariff thing is going to happen anyway. I think it's just a muscle flex.
Well, what we've looked into it just yesterday, and for now, if we understand it correctly, it might be a problem for aircraft coming from Canada being sold in the US. They will be taxed, pre-owned as well, and it's valid for engines and APUs manufactured in Canada as well. And that's for now. So let's see how it goes. It also means that an American manufactured aircraft sold into Canada will be taxed, or in Mexico will be taxed. So how is it going to evolve? If you look back, maybe the airlines or the airline manufacturer are an inspiration, because if I'm not mistaken, between 2018 and 2020, there has been a first round of tariffs on Airbus planes first, and then Boeing planes, and everybody continued selling in the end.
Yeah, Matt, good question here. What do you
Yeah.
think the biggest threat is to values in this year, 2025?
If it's something foreseeable that's already existing, I think maintenance and the time delays, and when people have to put down an airplane for 6 months because you might have a few engine parts that aren't in, and engines have been difficult, I could see that sort of hurting some values. But otherwise, I think it's more of unforeseeable. Maybe, tariffs, some political tension, something elsewhere would change our kind of throw a stick in our wheels. But otherwise, what do you see?
These aircraft are tools. People use them as tools, and as long as they need the tools, the demand will be there, because the people need them. The only way the values are going to suffer is if the economy is going to suffer. I mean, you see it. The economy is going well, the values hold. The economy is going down, the values go down. There's a correlation. There's no way it's going to work otherwise.
Sort of a last round of questions here. Do any of you have any thoughts of things that you're particularly going to be interested in over the next year or so? Any points, any predictions as to things that might be good, positive drivers for continued growth in the market, or threats to the market? Any thoughts on that we haven't already covered?
I don't think so. I mean, I think this year is going to be fairly steady for values. I certainly see values, I think, flattening out this year. Certainly with the drive, hopefully the drive in aircraft purchases will certainly steady the values. I think the biggest issue this year, towards the end of the year, is going to be stock levels, finding aircraft. I think that's going to be a real issue.
It's interesting, with the amount of transactions going on and the amount of actual airplanes available, we might have just about a year's worth of airplanes, but more are coming. But I was interested by this question. Is a high number of transactions combined with falling residual value not actually a sign of weaker industry? I don't think so, because I don't think residual values are dropping that much. We have some airplanes that are actually, people can think some values have gone down over the last 2-3 years, but they're coming down from an incredible high. So some airplanes have actually increased their values. Banks are liking it. Financing's more available. It's even for the banking industry and the loaning industry, it's a healthy market.
25-year-old BBJs are up in value significantly.
Yeah, it's a question of timing. Everything has to do with the fact when do you look at the start, you know, and when did you buy it? That's what's going to make the difference. But these things are depreciating assets. It's normal for them to depreciate. It's not normal for them to appreciate. But we have some customers, an example now, somebody bought a 604 3-4 years ago, I think just before the prices went really, really high, and he's going to make $2 million out of it now after having used the aircraft for that amount of time. So pretty good deal.
That's on the near new, that's what we're saying. Some guys are selling 3-4-year-old airplanes and actually, yeah, a little higher than new. But, and on top of that, OEMs are also have great book-to-bills. They have, you know, they're getting good numbers for their airplane. I think it's, no, overall people are paying numbers.
All right, I think our time is up. So Mark, Pascal, Matt, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.